The following program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 145420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit AbsoluteLoans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information. You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell. Sponsored by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Now, in the studio, local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome to the Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, November 21st show. I am your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, empowering our community, providing you with opportunities and solutions when it comes to your money. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. But I'm here to answer any questions that you have or connect you with the guests that I have in studio. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And one guest in studio for the entire show today, I have Noelle Bortfeld, Chief Marketing Officer with Windermere Real Estate, here to discuss personal agent branding. But if you're in charge of any branding for a business or if you're an entrepreneur, this will be a great show for you to listen to. Great information again, and I have an amazing guest in studio for more information on any of the topics that we're discussing today or topics that you would like to hear on future shows. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And let's start out today's show, as always, with a little money chat. Money. Well, I wanted to talk about my arena, which is mortgage financing today, and share the 203K rehab loan, FHA. I've talked about this in the past, but it's been a couple years, so I thought I'd bring it in now because there are still opportunities and homes out there that are not in perfect condition that may prevent you from being able to get standard financing. And so a rehab loan, a 203K rehab loan, may be an option for you to secure financing on the home that you want. Maybe you can see the beauty in the home when somebody else can't because it needs a little TLC. This might help you. FHA financing is attached to the 203K rehab loan. FICO score credit requirement is 620. Minimum 3.5% down payment. It's not quite a simple calculation. There's a little bit more depending on where the cost and improvements come in, but it's around 3.5%, maybe maximum 4%. Closing takes place is a little longer period than what your standard closing. Standard closing may be 30 days, whereas you're going to need at least 60 days, depending on the scope of the work and how quickly you get bids and your contractor getting the information needed for the approval process. It can take longer, so a lot of that depends on what you're willing to do time-wise. Work must be completed within 90 days from the home closing. So basically what you're doing is getting a additional loan that you're going to finance into your primary mortgage to do improvements on the home so the home can pass for financing, also provide the additional work that you may want to move into the home, whereas you don't have the cash to do that yourself. It is a single loan. The maximum loan amount is $417,000, which needs to include the rehab cost for the replace or for rehabbing the home. Payments are made during that 90 days on the entire loan. So the work, again, is going to be completed within 90 days. You may not be occupying the home, but you're going to start making your mortgage payments. Now, the maximum for the rehab is $35,000 on the standard 203K rehab loan, but that does need to include a 10% reserve. So maybe you're looking at closer to $32,000, obviously depending on what the loan amount is. The remaining 10% is going to go into a principal reduction. So that's where those funds are going to go. Once repairs are completed, a representative from the lender is going to go out to the property to review to make sure everything's been completed up to code. You are going to have a representative from FHA that's certified through FHA in order to take a look at the property to make sure that the work is being done is the work that's necessary to meet the financing requirements, and then anything additional that you want, you can make those choices. There is a one-time fee for this loan to cover the representative coming out to the property. It's either a minimum $350 or 1.5 of the construction amount. Additional fees for the appraiser, maybe $400, $500, $600. It just depends. And for the work, for the additional work that they're going to be doing on the property as well. Now, work has to be done by a licensed and lender-approved general contractor. General contractor's license and proof bond required. It's going to take 2 draws. One of the draws is going to be up front for material and the other at the end when everything is completed. So you've got to make sure that your contractor is going to be okay with the way the payment is going to take place. Now, repairs that are eligible, I'm going to go through just a few here very quickly. You can call into the show or again go online to get more detail for information. But roof, gutters, downspouts replacement, upgraded existing HVAC systems, upgraded plumbing, electrical systems, health and safety hazard, landscaping requirement, migration, draining, and erosion issues, landscaping when the appraiser verifies that the value increases dollar for dollar. So there's some requirements there. Sidewalk driveway repair, accessibility improvements for persons with disabilities, drywall insulation replacement, finishing basements, basement waterproofing, custom cosmetic repairs, appliances. There's a lot more, but there's just a few that are listed. Now, here's more importantly, I guess, is some of the things that are not allowed. Major construction, so foundational work, room additions that are not permitted. Foundation and structural repairs are not allowed. Major remodeling. Houses, if they're not completed for some reason, we're not seeing that as much, now, but back after the financial crisis, there were a lot of houses that builders couldn't complete because they couldn't continue to afford to do that. That is not allowed on the 203K rehab loan. Major replacement for utilities, plumbing, electrical. If it's major replacement, that's not allowed. So again, you can always call the show or go to the website if you need additional information. Now, there are costs for the consultant for the rehab. $5,000 to $7,000 in rehab, you may be looking at $400 all the way up to a rehab in your, the $35,000 range, maybe $700, $800. Benefit is you're going to get a better deal on a home. Most of the time, homes that are in need of a rehab, other buyers may not see the vision. So if you can see that, make it your own and be able to hang on to those savings that you're going to see from the possible discounted price that you might get on that property. And maybe get your dream home at a location that you could not otherwise afford because you're getting a better discount on or a better price on this home. Now, steps into making an offer. The inspection, 5 to 10 day extend for the process of that. Offer accepted. You get your feasibility study, $250, including in the inspection. Waive the inspection. So you're going to waive through that bid with the contractor. You get your bid reviews by the lender consultant and approved. The contractor is going to start work after that once your loan funds and closes. So great way, again, to get into a property that maybe needs a little TLC. Coming up next in the Money Hour, regardless of the type of business that you may be involved in, whether it's an office on Wall Street or a basement in your own home, your personal brand matters, and how you're communicating your personal brand is really important to the business that you're going to get. And that's why I'm very excited to have my next guest, Noelle Bortfeld, Chief Marketing Officer with Windermere Real Estate, right here at 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.
The 1,200,000 women and men of Rotary have accomplished extraordinary things. They've taught millions of people to read, worked toward world peace, and have nearly eradicated a crippling childhood disease from the face of the planet. But each of those 1,200,000 women and men know they could accomplish so much more if only they were 1,200,001. Find out what an impact one person can make. Learn about Rotary at Rotary.org.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here at 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, November 21st show. My goal is to keep you up to date on the latest news and trends in our local economy. Keep me tuned in and I will keep you informed. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast, but you can always call the show at 1-855 855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com for any questions, or if you would like to get connected with the guest that I have in studio, which is Noelle Bortfeld, Chief Marketing Officer with Windermere Real Estate. And Noelle, thank you so much for coming in and joining me in studio.
Well, thank you for having me, Tina. I appreciate it.
Excited to have a conversation with you about branding. Myself being an entrepreneur and having my own mortgage business and CEO of a software company and the radio show. And, branding is really important to be able to communicate who you are through your brand. And so this really is a show that's, you work with obviously a lot of realtors being with Windermere and in charge of all of Windermere and their end of that end of the business. But anybody that's listening to the show that is responsible for branding at any company, I know we've got a lot of entrepreneurs out there. We've got a great opportunity in our economy to kind of live your dream and do what you want with your business. Understanding branding is really important. So thank you again for joining me. And a little background about Noelle. Chief Marketing Officer, again, she's responsible for all consumer marketing activities on behalf of Windermere Real Estate. She oversees branding, advertising, interactive and direct marketing, lead generation, program management, social media, public relations, and event marketing. Wow. Her experience includes brand marketing for Fortune 500 company as well as global agency experience. And she also leverages in leadership background in web application development and consumer relationship management, which is your CRM. Recently, Noelle made Boston Logic's top 10 to watch. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, Tina.
So let's go ahead and start out. The first question I'd like to ask is to tell my listeners about the brands that you have worked with in the past.
Okay, well, I'll go way back. About 30 years ago, my first job was with Nestle, and I was fortunate to work on the Contadina tomato products business. And one of the fun parts about that brand was that we got to launch Pizza Squeeze. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Contadina Pizza Squeeze, but that's that squeezable pizza sauce. So I was part of that team. And then after that, they put me on Nestle infant formula. So we were launching infant formula into the United States. So that was kind of a big deal. Nestle had an infant formula in the rest of the world, but not in the U.S. So very exciting. And a lot of media choices that we had with TV, print, radio, direct mail. We did it all. And then I worked a little bit on Nescafe, which is a instant coffee, and it's very popular in Mexico.
Okay.
So a lot of the marketing that we did in the States was very much ethnic marketing. And then after Nescafe, I decided to, after 10 years with Nestle, which was an awesome experience, move on to the agency side. And that's where I started to work with Hewlett-Packard for a number of years. Okay. So really getting out of food and into technology to broaden sort of your experiences, that was really great. And then a little bit of Microsoft work, and then here I am with Windermere Real Estate.
And it's been how long that you've been with Windermere?
It's been 6 years now.
Okay, so it's getting on a little bit of time there.
Yeah, it's a great brand. I mean, here especially in the Northwest, it's just a great company, great brand.
And it's interesting. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about this, but really being able to be known for something. And one of the big things that Windermere is known for is their education, and in that process is through the branding and how you're communicating the message. They're also really known for giving back to the community, and which is so it's important. And you hear about how important it is to really share your why behind your business. And Windermere does an amazing job with that. So let's talk about the difference between brand and branding.
Sure. When I teach a class about personal agent branding, but I think it is relevant to mortgage brokers or financial advisors or any of those entrepreneurs that you mentioned earlier. But really, when I talk about the difference between brand and branding, brand is about a set of emotions that you want people to feel about you. Okay. So it's not just head, it's mostly heart. Coke, Starbucks, everybody wants you to feel something about their
Apple
brand.
computer.
Right, exactly. So it's really a result of an experience typically. Branding, contrary, is more the activities that you do, like if you write a handwritten note or if you do direct mail or if you do coffee or that kind of thing. So those are really the activities. So when you say, I'm going to brand myself, it's usually about developing your brand or evolving it But branding is the actual activities.
Got it. And would you say that one's more important than the other one?
Well, you shouldn't really be doing any branding unless you've identified your brand.
That makes total sense. So it's important to find out your message and how you're going to be connecting on an emotional level.
Correct.
And then you're going to move forward with the branding. Now, you talk about 6 elements of brand. Can you break those down for my listeners?
Sure. And this is really the elements that I learned at Nestle 30 years ago, but I still think it applies not just to food products, but also to people and services.
Okay.
So the first one is the positioning statement, and that's probably the most important one. The second one is core values. Third is brand character. Fourth is messaging. Fifth is tone or voice. And then finally, graphics, if you have a logo or if you have colors, et cetera, the visual part of your brand.
Okay, so it's following through those 6 steps to make sure that you have your position statement. So spending some time, and I would imagine that you're doing these in these order. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're going to start with your position statement. That's your message and the emotional connection part of the brand. Your core value and what's important to you in your business. The third one was brand
character.
Brand character. So give me an example of brand character.
I always tell folks that maybe if I meet you at a cocktail party,
okay,
and we start chatting about something other than our kids and weather, the kind of the flighty conversations, and we really start to connect deeper,
which is important
because it is all about emotions and having relationships with people. So you want to find that commonality and find that tribal member, I call them, sort of that tribal member. But once I understand who you are and you understand me, and we understand what each other's needs are emotionally, I think I get a sense of your brand character.
Okay.
You could be the funny, goofy, silly friend that you need when you're down, or you can be the person that is always giving back and making sure everybody's taken care of. Everybody has their own brand character.
So give me a brand character without using a name of one of your top industry leader realtors over at Windermere.
Give me
a brand character of one of your industry leaders over at Windermere. So give me an example of how somebody would be, because I think in real estate even more important is, because they're interacting so much on a personal level, is being able to communicate their brand character to their clients is going to be even more important, correct?
Correct. The person that comes to mind is someone that really works with a lot of luxury clients.
Okay.
And this agent has impeccable taste. He's extremely articulate, very professional, understands architecture, interior design. He treats his clients with such attention to detail and doesn't skip over anything. He's always there for them. He's also emotionally connecting all the time with a phone call over after every step. So he's a caretaker. I'd characterize him as a caretaker.
So that would be his brand character. Mm-hmm. So messaging was the next one.
So messaging is really, when I think about how people message, the thing that pops into my mind that's very common is how somebody writes a bio, their own bio.
Okay.
And when I talk to agents about what they're saying about themselves, I encourage them to look at their current bio and count how many times they say the word I.
Got it.
And then I ask them to look again at the sentence that they're trying to construct and communicate, and possibly finish that statement with, so that you can benefit in a certain way.
So the bio is not about you. The bio is about what you are and why the client needs that, or how it's going to benefit the client.
Correct.
Okay.
In fact, a positioning statement, really, when you think about it, it's the statement is for a target audience who need what.
Okay.
So you really have to understand what their needs are. You are the agent or the loan mortgage broker, whoever you are that person that provides what emotional and what functional needs with what competitive advantage.
Got it.
So the competitive advantage is really something that's unique to everybody. You have to identify that yourself. But I think the real estate industry tends to rely too much on functional benefits to communicate their value.
Yep.
And functional benefits are things like, neighborhood knowledge or strong negotiator. And that's all fine, but to me, that's sort of the cost of doing business.
Everybody should have that, yes.
Exactly. It's even
like
playing
for me,
field.
I can close a loan on time.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
I provide good customer service.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you really have to kick it up to a different level and start to connect emotionally with people, because really when you get into that emotional level, now you have a relationship. And those are the people or the tribe that has the highest propensity to refer you.
Got it.
So you want to spend time and money. And I always say, marketing or branding isn't necessarily about spending money. It can be the investment of time.
Yes.
Just really being able to connect. And frankly, if you get what we call word of mouth marketing or referrals, that's the best. That's free.
And if you've got a clear message and it's a message that can communicate, as you say, on the brand side, emotionally, you're going to have a bigger chance of those referral and introductions.
Yeah.
So the fifth one was
the tone and voice.
The tone and voice. I can't read my own writing here.
So you think about how people speak, or you have friends that are very professional, right? Or you have friends that are very, very casual. I tell the agents, don't try and be one or the other. Be who you are. Be authentic. Be consistent. Because if you try and be something else, people are going to sniff that out.
Yes.
You have to be authentic. So one of the examples of a brand that I think has an excellent tone and voice is Maker's Mark.
Okay.
It's a whiskey, I think, or a bourbon.
Yes, that's right. I was like, I know what is that?
It's got that...
My husband loves bourbon, not me.
It's got that melted wax on the top. But if you ever sign up to be an ambassador of that brand, you'll get some emails from them that really make you feel like you are the most sophisticated whiskey drinker in town, and that you really know... You're just a higher level up than the traditional whiskey. You just makes the email tone makes you feel so sophisticated. I just think they do a great job.
And the last element, 6, was
graphics.
The graphics. So in graphics, what would be your tips in really being able to connect and again, get to that emotional side just by your graphics and communicating your message?
Well, let me give you an example of an agent that I think has done it well. When I think about her target audience, and we break target audience down in 3 ways, basically. One is a demographic profile, one is a geographic profile, and one is a psychographic profile. So the demographic profile is usually based on age, income, education, and presence of children. Okay, so that's a typical demographic profile.
Okay.
A geographic profile might be, Sammamish or Mercer Island, whatever.
Got it.
And a psychographic is more of a lifestyle.
Okay.
So Ty Evans works on Bainbridge Island. That's her geographic target. Her demographic target is usually the 55 to 65, higher income, higher education.
Okay.
Kids have left or are going out.
Got it.
And they're wealthy, but they're also, from a psychographic standpoint, there's 2 things. One is they're very philanthropic. They give back because they have the means to.
Of course.
And they care about their community because it's Bainbridge Island. It's very small. But also, Ty does a great job of connecting to the psychographic of island living, which is very different from living here on the mainland.
Yes.
For some people, island living represents, sunrises and sunsets and wine by the fire pit and all that stuff.
Yes.
She, in all her brand messaging, she does a great job kind of bringing that whole lifestyle to life. But her logo is actually an Adirondack chair, which I think is brilliant.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I work with a Realtor that does almost, I'd say, at least 80% of the business out on Anderson Island. You know where that's at?
Yes.
Yeah. Way out past Stillicum, or across from Stillicum. And I just love it when I call her a voicemail and she says, I'm on island today. And just that, saying I'm on island today, I'm not on island. I don't even know what being on island feels like. But when I heard that voicemail the first time, I was like, wow, I want to be on island.
That's an example of great brand messaging, right?
A shout out to you, Cheryl. All right. So coming up next on the Money Hour, personal branding. I'm going to continue the conversation here with Noelle Bortfeld, Chief Marketing Officer with Windermere Real Estate, right here on 1150 AM at KKNW. Stay tuned.
The University of Washington Parent-Child Study is looking for parents and their 8 to 11-year-old children to participate in a 3-hour research study examining how children learn to distinguish between what is safe and what is not safe. They're especially interested in how those processes differ in children of parents with and without post-traumatic stress disorder. Parents are compensated with up to $60, and all children are given a UW Child Scientist t-shirt. In addition, all parents receive a thorough psychiatric evaluation. For more information, please call Alyssa at 206-685-9043 or visit online parentchildstudy.com. That's 206-685-9043 or parentchildstudy.com.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here at 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, November 21st show. I'm committed to providing you the knowledge needed to be successful in every area regarding your finances. Knowledge is power, and that's why I'm here and what you're hear from my show. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. To talk to the guests that I have in studio or anything that you need from me, you can call the show at 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And the entire show today is here with Noelle Bortfeld, Chief Marketing Officer with Windermere Real Estate. And she's sharing her information on branding and the importance for branding for your business as she helps all of the realtors at Windermere to make sure that they have the best branding that they can for their business. Noelle, thank you again for being here for the entire show, which is a little unusual because usually I have 3 guests, but today I made it all about you. I think it's such an important message, and you're at such a high level with one of the top real estate companies in our market that I just really wanted to spend some more time with you.
Thank you.
So we, before I took us to break, we were talking about, Noelle, broken down these 6 elements for a brand. And so we kind of broke those 6 down. We talked about position statement, core value, brand,
Character,
messaging. Okay. And then tone, voice. Mm-hmm. And the last one
was the graphics.
Graphics. So out of these 6, Noelle, if one of your realtors were to come to you and or any of the real estate agents that I have listening to the show, because we have many that do, what would you say is the most important out of those 6 elements?
You really need to nail the positioning statement.
Okay.
And from there, most of that follows. The positioning statement's hard.
Yes.
To even just document. It's really an internal roadmap. It's not something you share with anybody, but it's something that you might look at once you fill it out. You would say, all right, if I only have an hour of time or $100 to spend, how can I really do rifle marketing? Not big shotgun, but how to be really rifle with your approach so that you're reaching those folks that have the highest propensity to refer you. So positioning statement, it's again, I'll mention it's for a target audience who needs something. You are the agent that provides both emotional benefits and functional benefits with what competitive advantage. And you'll notice that it's really about, a lot of times when people think about their own personal brand, they think me, right? This is all about me. And it's really not. Once you define your positioning statement, and if you listen to what it's asking you to fill in, it's for that target audience. Who need what? It's about their needs. It's about your client's need, your customer's needs. So once you nail that, I mean, you can pretty easily come up with your own core values. You pretty much know yourself and your own brand character. Messaging, you know how you write or how you talk. Your tone and your voice will all be there. And if you want to take the next step to create graphics, hire somebody really good in design that really understands your brand in totality.
Yes.
It's really hard for a graphic designer just to come up with something that's unique to you without really understanding your positioning statement.
And I would imagine once you go through the positioning statement and you really put the proper time and thought process through it, you have figured everything out. Now it's just a matter of plugging in those other pieces.
Right. And I'll give you an example of one agent that her target audience really is seniors. And all her marketing activities, her branding activities are to seniors. But 60% of her business comes from those seniors' kids. So the seniors do business with her because they're marketed to, but they're the first ones to refer her to the children. Now,
so how do you position that when your positioning statement is for the senior, but you know that there's all this opportunity that's going to be coming from their children, which you want to position yourself to be appealing to the children as well?
It comes back to you don't have unlimited time and money.
Okay.
So you have to be more specific.
Got
and
it.
people think that they're going to lose business by being specific, but that's not the case. You're still going to get the clients that are going to dig you. But who are you going to actually market to? Who are you going to spend money with or on? Who are you going to spend time with? Knowing that she loves working with the seniors. That's her passion. When she does get the referral to the kids, of course she's going to take that transaction.
Yes.
But she can't afford to market to all the kids too.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty much everybody, right?
Exactly.
So that's her business model, and it works for her. She could go the opposite way and work with the kids and market to the kids and try and get the parents' business as well.
And I would think, in helping the parents first, the kids would. I mean, that's a real emotional connection right there, because you help their parents.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the times you're helping their parents that are getting to that next stage in life, which can be a pretty traumatic process. I've brought that a lot in on the show with different experts and talking about senior transitioning and just all the things that can happen. And so really being there to take care of their parents, I would imagine that's a good target to go for versus starting with the kids and getting the introduction up.
Absolutely.
So functional benefits?
Functional benefits. A lot of the agents will talk about, that neighborhood knowledge. I know where all the schools are, and
yes,
I'm a strong negotiator, or I'm attentive, or I'm hardworking, and unfortunately, those words are overused in their brand messaging.
Okay,
and it doesn't differentiate you. And when you have a positioning statement, that's the purpose. The purpose of that is to differentiate you.
Yes,
because you really want to have not just an understanding of the client's needs, but what is your competitive advantage. In fact, that one agent that I was talking to you about, that targets seniors, she put together this great booklet that most agents use it for the folks that they work with, their lenders or their landscapers or their painters, the folks that help the seller get ready, their stagers. This woman actually put together a whole piece that included service providers like elder law attorneys or caregiver support or Alzheimer, just dementia, all those kinds of things.
Things that are specific to her targeted market.
Exactly. And that's something that's relevant and of value.
Yeah.
So when we talk about what are the things that you're doing that are functional, try and make them relevant and of value.
Makes total sense. You talk about the emotional benefits. So what would be some examples of emotional benefits?
I think some clients want to feel safe, especially the first-time home buyers. There's a lot of fear. They don't know what this process is about. And frankly, I think about people even at my age. I've probably bought or sold 3 or 4 houses. We only do it every 6 or 7 years. A lot changes.
And we know a lot more of what can go wrong.
Exactly.
So that we actually might be even a little more frightened. It's like, oh my gosh, please.
Exactly. Or there might be, compassion that might be involved, especially with seniors.
Yep.
I think folks that are relocating into a different city from other need somebody that might have done it themselves. So they have that empathy for what do we do with the pets? How are we going to handle finding the schools and getting them set up in time? I mean, there's just so much more when you're relocating.
And what's available in my community that's make me feel like I'm a part of something because I'm leaving everything that I was a part of in this other state.
Exactly.
And I would imagine with kids too, and being able to connect on an emotional level in what's great about what you're doing in the area for your children.
Sure. I just think that the emotional benefits are what really separates the agents that are just doing their job functionally.
Yes.
The ones that are connecting and developing relationships will have those clients for a lifetime. And then those are really the people that have the higher propensity to refer them.
Yes.
So that's really to take the time to understand their needs and connect on an emotional level. I mean, there's women that are maybe going through a divorce. Mm-hmm. There are one agent targets widows in Mercer Island, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, they just know how to help these people that are going through significant grief or transition.
And would you advise too? I would when you're let's say that you're new in the business or you're revamping and deciding to really retarget or something, going with something. And I thought about this when you said a widow is targeting something that you're passionate about. Obviously, that you have experience and you've gone through. Is this agent that targets widow? Is she a widow or herself, or do you see people that are targeting in areas that the experiences they've gone through and things that are important to them?
Well, it started out, it's actually a male agent. And it was one of his friend's wife, and he helped her through that. And then
so there you go. That
just happened where that woman had another friend that lost her husband, and this male agent pretty much goes in and takes care of things that, it may sound sexist, but he's going to take care of a lot of the things that maybe the husband took care of for them.
Got it.
As they're getting the house ready to sell. They might mow the lawn. Sense. They might take their garbage. They might do whatever.
And it doesn't matter. In every relationship, not all that man doesn't do the same things as another relationship, but in every relationship, there is very specific and defined roles of that partnership. And so having somebody step in and be able to take those over as they're getting through this transition, that makes total sense. Noelle, what about when we're talking about the emotional benefits in communicating what's important to you? You talk about your core values. So in breaking things in that are important to you personally that don't have anything to do with business, how do you coach and advise around doing that?
I try and coach agents to really listen to what their clients' core values are first.
Okay.
Because if you're not in alignment, then you don't want your core values being in your brand messaging.
Got it.
So it's really, and I'm not saying that you always have to write all this stuff down. It's about understanding who you are and how you present yourself. But the number one thing you got to do before you present yourself is listen.
Yes.
And understand and connect. Because you might have clients where you're not in alignment from a core value standpoint, but you still have to do the job.
Yes.
But if you are in alignment from a core values, boy, that's an opportunity to really connect more deeply.
Makes total sense. So I'm going to take it to commercial, but before we do that, I want to ask you about a couple examples for a competitive advantage.
Sure. I think that's the woman that targets the seniors. She actually has a special designation, special education, special classes that she's taken. Sometimes if you have two agents competing against each other and one has a senior specialist designation and the other one doesn't, that can be a competitive advantage. You can have, somebody that speaks a second language. That might be important.
Yes.
And somebody else can't. So you're really looking for things that are unique to you that will separate you from another agent that might be competing for the listing.
So what I've really picked up, Noelle, that I've want anybody that's listening to the show, that it's really important to think about your uniqueness, your brand, your target, and don't worry about that cutting out anything else that doesn't fall into that. There's enough business out there for all of us. Why not focus on the business that is right and specific to our area of expertise, our area of passion, and our area of experience?
Absolutely. I tell people, you will have clients that you don't want to work with. And so why not try and target the people that are going to bring you joy and that you're going to bring joy to?
Exactly. And they're going to continue referring people just like them.
Exactly.
Coming up next on the Money Hour, how do you set yourself apart from your competitors, your personal brand? That's what does it. More information and more conversation with Noelle Bortfeld, Chief Marketing Officer with Windermere Real Estate, right here on 1150 AM KKNW.
The 1,200,000 women and men of Rotary have accomplished extraordinary things. They've taught millions of people to read, worked toward world peace, and have nearly eradicated a crippling childhood disease from the face of the planet. But each of those 1,200,000 women and men know they could accomplish so much more if only they were 1,200,001. Find out what an impact one person can make. Learn about Rotary at Rotary.org.
This is the Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to the Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, November 21st show. I provide you the news on everything money. Fresh information on market trends and conditions in our local economy. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. You can call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150. 855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com. And continuing my conversation here with Noelle Bortfeld, Chief Marketing Officer with Windermere Real Estate. And we're talking about agent personal branding, which really personal branding applies to anyone that needs to brand in their business. And it's just valuable information because it's going to make or break whether your business is going to thrive or not survive at all. So let's start out with what's the biggest mistake when it comes to agent messaging. So when realtors are out there messaging, what's the biggest mistake they're making?
I think they're relying too much on the functional benefits.
Okay, give my listeners an example.
So they're talking about, I know the neighborhood best and I know the schools. Well, yes. So does the next agent right down the street that knows all about the same stuff. And so when I talk to them about how they're writing their messaging, I do talk to them about trying to weave in some more emotional words.
Okay.
And I give them the example of when you're reading a book and all of a sudden you just start to cry.
Yes.
It's because the author knows how to connect on an emotional level and use words that are different. You know, the woman that I referred to earlier, she said in one of her bios, clients tell me I demonstrate the awareness and sensitivity to the family's needs at large. And so that's really interesting to use those words. First of all, you can say clients tell me. That's a cheating way of saying, instead of saying I'm not saying it. And that's I want to bring that up again. When you're writing it, make sure that you're leaving out the I's at all possibility. And that's a good example. So go ahead. Yeah, clients tell me. But then the other part is if you do say I, you can finish that sentence so that you can benefit and fill in that blank. What is the emotional benefit that you're trying to provide? Because the reader is really thinking, what's in it for me?
Yes.
You know, when I read about a bio that says, you know, I met my soulmate and we have 2 wonderful children, you know, I don't care.
Yes.
I'm trying to make a decision about who's going to sell my home. Exactly. I want to know how you're qualified, both functionally, and I want to understand how we're going to work together. And that's usually more of an emotional standpoint.
Yes. And so if you want to bring something in about your personal, it's talking about the, you know, I can relate to this because I'm a mother as well, or, you know, whatever that conversation may be. Now, if somebody is asking you, one of our realtors is asking, is it about quality or quantity? So when you're talking about making the biggest mistake in how you're communicating your messaging through the functional part of it, do you just leave those functional things out, or is it better to put the functional things in but to make sure that that's secondary to your real core message?
Yes, you can't leave them out. And
okay, so it's not about this in this situation. It's not about quality, or it's a quality and quantity. You want to have everything in there. Just make sure that you don't leave out the quality part of it.
Right. You have to have what's necessary to play in the sandbox. You know, you got to have all those things, but they're not going to differentiate you.
Okay.
And in fact, when you read enough agent bios, they all start to sound the same. And so it makes it a harder choice for a consumer or client to figure out who I'm going to go with if they're just going online and reading about them.
Yes.
If they're all saying the same thing, you're trying to figure out, okay, how is this going to be a different experience for me? And usually experiences go back to emotions.
Yes.
So you've got to include those emotional benefits.
And so then you want to have those emotional benefits in there first. The first thing that they're reading is the emotional, and then you get to all of the functional stuff towards the end of it.
Probably.
Yes. Okay. What about testimonials? We hear so much about the importance of reviews and testimonials. How do you give advice on that?
2 words, get them.
Okay.
No, I think it's really important to just everybody's looking at those reviews and ratings right now. But the difference, I think, in reading a review, because those also can start to sound the same. Clients aren't always getting very creative. They just say, oh, gosh, working with Tina was so great, and she's such a great negotiator, and it was really fun. And everybody's saying the same thing.
Yes.
So I encourage the agents to ask their clients to write about what they did and how it made them feel. Now, sometimes the feely words are tough, but
made them feel.
Yeah, because then you're going to have the client writing emotional words for you.
And you want somebody to tear up when they're reading that review, right? I mean, that would be awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So really, it's not just tell me. Don't just write about what I did.
Yes.
For you. Please tell me how it made you feel.
Yes.
Because that's going to really bring out the rich experience that we had together.
And that's really great, Noelle. If you leave with words here today after my conversation with Noelle, leave out the I at all possibility. That's so the word I is not good when you're writing something about yourself that you want to emotionally connect with somebody else. And using, really connecting based on feel. It's really about feelings, and everything that you're doing in your business is around feelings and connecting on an emotional level on their feelings about you and the services that you can provide for them. And in testimonials, sometimes it's hard to get your clients to do testimonials. And do you think it's appropriate to just go, you know what, Noelle, I need your help?
Yeah. I tell this to my daughter. You don't ask, you don't get.
Yes.
So just ask. Some will do it. Some won't.
Yes.
But it's better than not asking.
Exactly. And I think especially when you've gone through the process already, because I'm going to assume if you're going to be asking for a testimonial or sending something to have them leave one, you've provided them awesome service.
Absolutely.
So at this time, it's okay to go, I need your help. And I think when we're communicating that way, and you're communicating not, can you do this for me? It doesn't have the same emotional as I need your help.
Right.
And, so just adding that emotional, how you're asking with things have a better chance. And then, like you said, telling them exactly how you want them to share.
Right. I will go back to this emotional side, but just because occasionally I'll have an agent that says, my client is unemotional. and that's okay. I mean, that can happen. Somebody can be unemotional, but
Sure.
There is some emotional benefit. For example, they were describing a Microsoft person that just was very task-oriented, just wanted to get the job done.
Mm-hmm. So that warm and fuzzy stuff
doesn't matter to them. But a warm and fuzzy can be confidentiality.
Okay.
That is an emotional benefit to feel, you
Everybody
trust somebody.
Has triggers.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you might have to peel back the layers of the onion. Here's another example. One gentleman told me, I only deal in short sales, and my clients love me for, and he rattled off all these functional benefits. My relationships with attorneys and banks and da-da-da-da. I know who to go to for what. And so we're in the middle of a class, and he goes, I don't understand any part of this emotional stuff. And so one of the women jumped up, and she goes, well, I'll call him Bob. Well, Bob, you do realize that you reduce shame. And his eyes got big, and he thought, what are you talking about? And it's not like you're going to go do brand messaging about reducing shame, but clearly when you're having a conversation and connecting with somebody emotionally, and you're using words like, hey, we're going to get through this, and, not your fault, bad timing. People find themselves in this situation. I'm here to help. So it really... Sometimes people have to dig a little deeper to find those emotional benefits.
And I love that example. That's why examples and stories are so important. And I'm sure he definitely connected with that, starting out with that, with the messaging that, I understand, and it's not your fault. And then you're going into all of the functional benefits.
Exactly.
And this is why it's important to work with me, because you have to have this, and this.
Exactly.
So you can be that expert in that unique field that you're in, but connecting up front. That's awesome.
Yeah, and if you ever had another short sale, if this person who'd gone through that short sale process with this person, and then he knows another buddy of his who's going through that, what do you think's going to happen?
Exactly.
The referral's there.
Yes, yeah. So what about bring all this together and how this drives your media choices?
Okay, I get a lot of agents sometimes ask me, hey, should I be doing newspaper advertising? And I always
What do you say?
I always say, who are you targeting?
Because all right. I'm waiting to hear what your answer is.
If it's the young person, first-time home buyer, newspaper is probably not the best vehicle. So it's driven by who you're trying to reach.
Okay.
The woman, Ty Evans, who does a lot of work in Bainbridge Island, she's just a creative, smart marketer. She went ahead and put her very cool logo on a little maybe 3x5 card with the ferry schedule on it. So she's delivering something of value that's relevant, and it's delivered in a place where people are going to be seeing it.
Yes.
So it's very targeted, not just to the demographic profile, but the people who are actually going over to the island, are coming and going.
Makes total sense. That's pretty brilliant.
Yeah. So you can get really creative with how you reach. I know one agent
and the more creative and the more fun, the more emotional it's going to be.
Totally. I have one agent that doesn't do any mail or anything like that. They have their coffee clients, their lunch clients, and their wine clients. And they're just face-to-face. They don't
Yeah.
do any marketing, but that's how they stay in flow. And they're out there a lot, just
And
meeting people.
the more that you're face to face, hand to hand,
Absolutely.
lunch to lunch, coffee to coffee is better than any email and mailing that you've got.
I always say that's the best marketing ever.
Yes,
Just
yes.
face-to-face.
So with all the media vehicle choices out there today, how do you steer your agents into the right direction?
Again, I
Because you
always
can kind of get scattered.
Sure. And I think sometimes they feel like they've got to go blanket a geography.
Yeah.
And I keep telling them, unless you're really doing something to connect on a little bit more of an emotional level or a more face-to-face level, you're really going to have to talk to 100 of those to get 2 conversions.
Yes.
So stick with the people that you know and build up that database and start to really try and connect on a more deeper level than just this cold outreach.
And if let's just say that because I've heard people coming in new in the business, and the idea that they have family and friends doesn't connect with them, the idea that they have people they went to school with, so they've got their sphere, but it's hard to think about going to those people, so they just want to start from scratch. So can you embrace that and go, okay, if you want to do, the cold end of it, would it be more beneficial to take that smaller group so you can put in the more deep in touch with them on a more regular basis and have something that you can manage versus, or is it more of a numbers game?
Yeah, at Windermere, we really are about relationships. We
Yes.
really believe that database is your gold mine.
Got it.
And so sometimes when people start to wonder, how am I going to be relevant to this database? I talk to them a little bit about segmentation. There's people that are going to be the numbers people, want to know everything that's going on in the market. Send them some flow pieces that talk about data.
Got it.
There's some people that are going to be the ones that are caretakers that are philanthropic or whatever. Send them information about the 30 million Windermere just donated to the,
Yes.
the Windermere Foundation just
Yes.
donated to local communities. Do things that are relevant to break up your database. So you're not just blanketing things out to people
Makes
that are
total sense.
less relevant and not of any value.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard of the DISC, I'm sure most of you have, but go online and find questions to ask in an email to find out where they fall on the DISC, and then you can immediately find out how you want to connect, whether you're going to
Exactly.
connect with those numbers or whether you're going to connect
Exactly.
with the pets or whatever the
Yes.
scenario is.
Sports teams.
It's a lot of fun. Let's do a whole show on that. That would be awesome. So tell my listeners about a couple brands that you love personally. Let's just wrap up my time with you in your favorites.
Okay, well, I did mention Maker's Mark because
Yes.
even though I don't drink it, I like the brand.
Yes.
Just because I think their packaging is amazing. They're not cheap.
The experience that you,
Yes.
yeah, you felt special.
Yes, because I'm a brand ambassador and I've got like
Yes.
a barrel of whiskey ready for me in 7 years or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll be giving that away. But I think the one brand that I like personally love is Dove. And I'm not talking about the chocolates. I'm talking about the body
The
wash.
soap.
Yeah,
Yes,
the soap stuff.
yes.
And I buy the soap too, but particularly the body wash. But just because
I always think of soap when I think of Dove. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yes.
and some people think chocolate, right?
Yes,
Isn't it
yes.
funny? So Dove is one of those, from a functional benefit standpoint, I get soft skin and I smell good, right?
Yes.
That's the functional benefit.
Yes.
But why I'm emotionally connected to the brand and why I will buy them and actually pay more for them, even though maybe Oil of Olay provides the same stuff, I just love their Beautiful Women campaign.
Yeah.
I think it represents something that is wonderful for society and for our daughters, and I just think they honor women in a way that is important to me. So that's why I love that brand. I will always buy it. I will pay more for it. I won't go if something else is on sale. I'm not going to buy the competitor.
Yeah.
I want to support and contribute to that brand because I think what they're doing is more than just providing a commodity of soap, right?
And that is such a great example because you just put a lot of pieces in there on the importance of the targeting market. So it doesn't matter if you're just targeting to these women. You're emotionally connected. So you're all of the women. Not only that, but they will pay whatever they need to pay. And it doesn't matter what else is around. They're not going to lose track of that relationship that they have with that brand that's been built around Dev.
And you think about, here I am buying this product, and my daughter's seeing the stuff in the bathtub too.
Yes,
so she'll probably be a customer
She'll be a customer as well. Another continued to introductions and referrals that will come from that.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Noelle, for coming in
today.
A pleasure.
The
conversation was so much fun.
It was very fun.
I learned a lot from you, and I just think it's such an important message for all of my realtors listening to the show and anybody else that wants to be successful in their marketing and their branding. This is your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, signing off for the day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I'm not going to talk to you till next weekend. So I want to put a shout out to all of my listeners and your family for our Thanksgiving time that's going to be coming up. So enjoy, spend time with your family. And I will be here, same time, same place, next Saturday right here on 1150 AM at KKNW.
The preceding program is paid for by Absolute Mortgage, a division of Pinnacle Capital Mortgage Corporation. Absolute Mortgage Company, NMLS number 81395 and Washington CL number 81395 is an equal opportunity housing lender. Tina Mitchell, MLO number 1454420, is a licensed loan originator with Absolute Mortgage. Visit absoluteloans.com or call 888-90-HOMES for cost information.